One of my favorite villainous archetypes is the individual driven not by greed or some blind desire for power, but by a profound sense of personal loss. Mr. Freeze from Batman, Kiss and Kate Barlow from Holes, or one that I covered extensively just last year on the channel, Ketherick Thorm from Baldur's Gate 3. Evildoers like these remind us that grief will always be one of the clearest and most human pathways to villainy that there is, allowing audiences to not only understand these antagonists clearly, but sympathize on such a deep level that we begin to question just how evil they really are. Well, recently, when I finally finished my personal Game of the Year for 2025, Clair Obscur Expedition 33, man, I was struck by how expertly this well-tread road was explored in new and surprising ways with the game's overall narrative, but more specifically, with its chief antagonist, the deeply intimidating, memorable, and masterfully written Renoir. A character that on the surface embodies so many of those grief-ridden tropes that we all know and love, but as you play and progress, you discover numerous incredible and unforeseen layers of complexity and nuance. A father, a husband, an artist, and a mass murderer. A fascinating splintered study on how tragedies can alter the heart of not just an individual, but the entire intricate emotional structure of a family. How grief can fracture your world, poison your methods of self-expression, and if you aren't careful, swallow you up whole. But beyond the thematic stuff, I think Renoir is also just an extremely badass and effective video game bad guy. Tough as nails with a malicious aura that you can feel through your screen, shrouded in mystery and danger, voiced by the legendary Andy Serkis with a face that to me looks dead on like Pierce Brosnan. Believe me when I say, I have not covered a character on this channel quite like Renoir. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Villainpedia. This is a video series where we take these long, hard looks at the most evil characters video games have to offer and try to figure out what makes each one of them special or memorable. I am Ghost, your host as always, and I want to take a moment to just thank all of my wonderful patrons. If you watching this appreciate what I do and you want to help me keep doing it, please consider supporting me down below with that link at $1 a month. And now, my friends, let's waste no time. Prepare your easels, pick up your paintbrushes, and let us begin. This will be your first and last warning. Today's video is full of massive spoilers for this game, so please proceed at your own risk. The world and lore of Clair Obscur is some of the most unique stuff that I have encountered in a video game in years. I mean, genuinely. During my initial playthrough, I kept thinking at certain story beats like, aha, I figured out the whole thing and I understood all the big secrets of the lore, but damn, I was repeatedly just wrong as hell. The scale of this narrative is staggering. The way the characters and the places and the events all link together in these quiet, interpretive ways is beautiful. And with the game still being so new, I mean, people are theory crafting the finer details of this stuff as we speak. So if we want to talk about Renoir specifically and his very odd role as a villain, let's go ahead and just sketch out the basic facts of this universe very plainly. Everything in Clair Obscur Expedition 33 centers around a single wealthy French family of artists living in Paris at the dawn of the 20th century, known as the Dessendres. The children, Alicia, Verso, and Clea, their mother, Aileen, and of course the patriarch, Renoir. But in this game, talented artists are not just able to create beautiful things to hang on the wall, they are able to craft entire worlds through art that one can enter and immerse themselves in fully. I mean, literally, like Mario 64. Using something called chroma, the color of life itself, these are magical canvases that you project your consciousness into. You can walk around and explore, breathe, eat, live fully amongst your creations while your mortal body remains in a sort of stasis back in the real world. Well, Aileen and Renoir, years before having children, painted hundreds of such canvases together, exploring the depths of their shared creativity and passion, creating life forms, mountain ranges, cities, and oceans, worlds within worlds. However, our man Renoir here learned the hard way that this was never a talent to be taken lightly. At some point in the distant past, he became lost within one of his canvases, seemingly believing it to be more beautiful, more real than the real world. And as his mortal body began to deteriorate and die, Aileen had to enter said canvas to forcefully remove her husband and save his life. She then taught him how to paint these worlds more safely and, quote, soar without flying too close to the sun. So you can already see how the very premise of Clair Obscur is riddled with symbolism and parables. Themes of escapism, the depths of your own creative subconscious, and always maintaining a healthy balance when blessed with the power to create, the power to paint. Now, I will say, this real-world part of the game's setting is left pretty mysterious. We know that Aileen was seen as the greatest painter in this family, as she was the head of something called the Painters' Council. And this faction of painters were known to be in a long-term dispute with a rival association called the Writers. Now, this beef is very important, but its details are anyone's guess. However, a popular fan theory that I quite like is that the writers are far more meta than you'd think, representing the actual creators of the video game, which I love, but that's a story for another time. Aileen and Renoir together raised their 3 children to paint with the very same power. Clair, the oldest, took to it naturally and grew into an extremely talented painter. Verso, the middle child, enjoyed the process of creating his canvas as a kid, but once he grew up a bit, gravitated much more to playing the piano. And Alicia, the youngest, found herself far more drawn to reading and to writing than her other siblings. By all we can tell, this was a happy, creative, loving little family, each with their own niche. But of course, as is the theme of Clair Obscur, tragedy rears its ugly head. On the night of December 33rd, 1905, a massive fire broke out and eventually engulfed the entire family manor in Paris that we understand to be an attack from the Writers. The home that Renoir and Aileen had built was utterly destroyed, along with so many of their painted worlds and other creations. But when the ashes finally settled, the true horror came to light that Verso, their beloved son, had been killed in the blaze. But more than that he had willingly sacrificed himself to save his little sister, who walked away partially blinded and scarred. An unimaginable tragedy that plunged the surviving Dessendres into a period of immeasurable pain. Now, it's very important to remember when we're talking about any of the characters in this game that there isn't one correct way to grieve, right? I'm sure all of you watching have experienced the death of a loved one or a pet or a friend, and there is no telling how your emotions are going to react and change. Some of us want to cry for weeks and weeks to just get it all out, and others try to distract themselves. Some might lean on friends and family, while others tend to self-isolate. And I think you can imagine how something like this specifically could affect a family in different ways. Do they come closer together? Do they fracture apart? I mean, when it's something this violent and awful, is there that subconscious blame game, regrets that bubble to the surface, seeing the departed in the face of your partner, your other children? There's so many depressing layers to it. And while Renoir and the daughters were of course crushed by this loss, no one in the family took it harder than Aileen. At a certain point, she became unable to even look Alicia in the eye, blaming her and her apparent connection to the Writers for this fire as she retreated into a place of comfort for her in her mourning, the canvas that had once belonged to her son. You see, when Verso was just a kid, he painted a world that he and his siblings would play in all the time. A somewhat goofy and colorful place full of creatures that he dreamt up, his stuffed toys brought to life, as well as a distorted, fictionalized version of Paris called Lumiere. It was a canvas full of fun, full of childhood whimsy, and of course, full of Verso. Literally, as a small shard of his soul has remained here for years, maintaining the world's fabric and structure. But you gotta understand that these real-world people going into these canvas worlds were godlike in their abilities while inside. If a painter or a paintress was skilled enough, they could craft complex organisms with a flick of a wrist. They could alter the reality and laws of the painting and really build any kind of world they could imagine. So upon entering Verso's canvas, Aileen did something that I know for sure my therapist would call crazy unhealthy. She constructed an entirely new reality for herself. She painted an intact version of her burned home to live in, and then, from scratch, created a painted copy of her entire family with Verso very much alive. But these were not one-to-one facsimiles. Each one of these painted people was a walking, talking reflection of how Aileen felt about them at that moment of creation. So painted Alicia, she was scarred and mute, covering her face in shame with a mask. Clair was strong and resilient. Verso, pure-hearted and good. And painted Renoir, well, seeing as the couple was in a rough patch since their son died, it wasn't the most flattering reflection. This dude was hard and stern, still loving and protective for sure, but rough around the edges to say the very least. However, these are not clones, they're not doodle bobs that had a few pre-recorded lines to make Aileen feel better. They were actual unique beings made of that chroma, all of this woman's memories. They had their own complex thoughts, wants, and needs that differed slightly from their real-life counterparts. And most importantly of all, this painted version of the family was made to be immortal. And here, within Verso's canvas, Aileen stayed with no intention of leaving. Now, it's definitely worth noting that all of this stuff we're talking about is very loosely inspired by some very real French history and very real French people. Pierre Renoir was one of the founding fathers of Impressionism in the mid to late 19th century, and he was married to a woman named Aileen, a frequent model in many of his portraits. Now, as far as I know, they didn't have like magical powers and they didn't have a son who died in a big fire, but many fans out there have started to connect details in Renoir's personal life and in his work to various things found here and there in the game. Very cool stuff, but definitely a deep rabbit hole to fall into. So let's just imagine our villain's perspective at this point in the backstory. Your son is dead. Your home and work destroyed, and now your wife is neglecting you and your traumatized daughter to drown herself in the fantasy land of your dead kid's childhood sketchbook as her real body begins to waste away. That's bleak as hell, it's not pretty. So, Renoir did what I think anyone would consider a common sense loving move, mirroring what so many years before Aileen had done for him, deciding to head into Verso's canvas himself to retrieve his wife and put this whole thing to an end. However, upon entering, he saw that this was no longer the simplistic land of a child's imagination. Aileen had painted genuine life and beauty into this world. I'm talking people, generations of thousands of painted people made of pure chroma, being born, living lives, and dying deaths. An entire race that had no idea they lived inside of a canvas. Along with forests, tundras, plains, towns, beaches, she had created a wonderful place, a place bustling with as much life as the real Paris, the real world, and at that moment, Renoir knew that it all had to be completely destroyed. Now, I'm always fascinated by villains that know that what they're doing is kind of harsh, but they just feel so strongly that someone's got to do it. And the real Renoir, as we'll call him from here on out, he sees himself as in the right from beginning to end. All he wants, and it is very genuine, is to pull his family back together and move forward as one to healthily process and accept this tragedy, not live in the past. And I adore how this simple and noble fatherly goal highlights the levels that there are to this whole narrative, and how those levels, those lenses of perceiving this story, warp the player's mind and our sense of morality. Because with all of this information zooming all the way out, in the real world, destroying this painting is definitely the healthy, albeit a little dramatic thing to do. But dude, imagine if you're one of those that was born of chroma inside the canvas. You're not even aware of the fact that there is another, apparently more real world bigger than yours, and that by someone's estimation up there, you're not even real. So then you got these godlike beings blowing everything up. It would be cataclysmically evil, right? But that then begs the question, how often do you consider the ant when you're stepping on the anthill? Would you, in this situation, even think of these painted people to be people? They eat, they sleep, they feel, they bleed, and can you prove that your, quote, real world is any more real than the canvas? Ultimately, of course, it's all a matter of perspective, where we, the players, are forced from the beginning of the game to see things from within with almost none of this information. Verso's canvas is of course the setting of this entire game. The characters we get to know, the places and things we see, have all been created either by little kid Verso or Aileen. And shortly after real Renoir entered the canvas and surveyed this situation, he did something that defines the entire runtime of Clair Obscur, triggering an event simply called the Fracture. In an instant, the continent was ripped apart, removing the city of Lumiere in its center from the mainland, tossing it violently into the sea, killing an untold number of painted citizens and throwing the entire canvas into disarray. He tried to erase the whole thing right there and get his wife out, but what followed was an epic fight between mom and dad, a battle for control that lasted decades within the canvas. Oh, I guess I should have mentioned, time moves a lot faster in there, though the actual time scale equation is a bit of a point of debate. Could be like seconds to years, or minutes to years, or even hours to years, who knows. But this was a marital dispute of biblical proportions. Aileen, as the superior paintress, had the clear upper hand, but when their oldest daughter Clair entered the canvas to help her father, Renoir was able to tip the scales until the two finally found themselves locked in an epic stalemate. A stalemate that culminated in Aileen imprisoning her husband beneath a massive monolith of stone and herself being stuck upon its peak. Renoir from this prison had his power greatly limited as he attempted to slowly but surely destroy the canvas while Aileen desperately tried to hold it all together. And at the beginning of this game, that is the state of things with the real Renoir. He is trapped, caged beneath this monolith. But here, ladies and gentlemen, is where things get very, very interesting, and honestly where Renoir really sets himself apart from other video game villains for me. Because remember, there are literally two of him with the same sort of DNA, the same sort of instincts and personality. So all this time, what the hell is up with the painted Renoir? Well, he exists here. This world is his family, his children, his home, though to real Renoir would be considered at best pathetic imitations, are to him as real as he feels. And this version of our antagonist is very similarly ready to do anything it takes to keep his blood, his family safe and united. So obviously, if the canvas is destroyed, they are all goners with it. And here lies the core uniqueness of this villain. What side of this do you fall on philosophically? Do you consider these painted people people? Do they deserve rights, respect, the ability to live and love? Or are they all merely figments of a wounded mother's imagination? A dangerous obsession that threatens the health of real-world people? I think as a narrative setup for a video game and like a general moral conundrum, it is legitimately genius. I want to pause really quick to tell you guys about something very, very cool. I have partnered with this guy. Yeah, that guy's soap company, Cheeky, to help spread awareness about gamer body odor and provide a pathway of light and fresh scent to those still living in the musk. Basically, these are good, inexpensive soap bars with all natural ingredients and delicious aromas that I genuinely use. And if you go buy some the next time you need a bar of soap and use the discount code GHOST, eventually we can together as a community create an official Ghostcharm bar down the road. So please click that link down below and just check it out. It is a wonderful way to support the channel directly and this long-term partnership that I am very stoked about. Remember to use code GHOST for a cheeky little 10% off, and always use cheeky, baby. Okay, back to the video. Allow me to gently remind you again that when you first play Clair Obscur, not a word of what we have stated thus far is told to you. I mean, when you hit new game, you don't know what the hell a Dessendre is, you don't know Renoir, a canvas, nothing. It's one of those games that kind of just starts with zero context and asks you as the player to be patient, use your thinking cap, and piece together the puzzle as things are given to you. And compared to the backstory, well, the beginning of this thing is honestly unrecognizable narratively. You play as this man named Gustave, a citizen of the city of Lumiere, an engineer some 6 decades after the fracture, whose world, whose life is dominated by something that the Lumiereans call the gommage. For on the distant horizon, a massive woman sitting in despair below a huge number once a year stands to update the numerals. It's a descending clock, a countdown, and it is very well known to the people here that all those of the written age will soon be erased, experiencing a sweeping, peaceful death at the harbor alongside their loved ones. Rituals and customs have all been established around this sad fact, and after losing someone very close to him, Gustave knows that his number is nearly up. But to combat this extremely strange reality, for years the people of Lumiere have been embarking on annual expeditions made up of those who only have 1 year left to live. A sort of Hail Mary attempt to murder that huge woman they call the Paintress and put an end to this gommage so they can all live free and full lives again. It's honestly an incredible beginning to a video game, an incredible introduction to this world, and one that sparks the imagination like crazy as Gustave's fellow expeditioners are introduced, and most notably, a red-headed young girl named Maëlle. But Clair Obscur really builds up that Paintress as the force of all evil here, the one pushing humanity toward extinction, and with that very basic understanding, your little crew prepares to embark on what is surely a suicide mission to the main continent. Because these expeditions, well, they have never succeeded. Over 60 years of them now, and none have ever returned to Lumiere. And yet still, there is a very strong ethos here that if you fail, you are embarking for those who come after. You make a little bit of progress, you move the chains, blaze a new path, so that eventually an expedition comes along that has everything they need to finally reach the Paintress and kill her. However, once their ships reach the sands of the not-so-distant continent, let's just say, things do not go according to plan.
Get ready. You're old. How did you survive the Gommage? Which expedition are you from?
That's gotta be one of the best villain introductions I have seen in years. I love that he doesn't even say a damn thing, just appears out of the mist in his sick-ass suit, gnarly scar on his eye, he looks maybe a tiny bit remorseful, and then decimates the expedition. The other boats and wreckage lying around suggests that he's probably done this a few times, and it makes you wonder, is this as far as all the previous expeditions have gotten, this meat grinder on the beach? And of course, the player in this moment has no idea who the hell this guy even is. But you and I, we know the truth, that was the painted Renoir. So I think the best way to structure the rest of this video is going to be to first focus on Paintman here and his role as villain, and then we'll turn it over to the real Renoir later on when it's applicable. So let's rewind again to like before the fracture, 67 years prior to this beach attack, when this guy lived within the canvas happily with his own painted family and wife, completely unaware of any larger world outside of his own, unaware of the canvas, though I do wonder if his wife painted him memories, if he reminisced on a childhood that he never had, if he believed that he was the real and only Renoir. There's some very interesting Blade Runner-ass stuff in there that would be very fun to explore. But when the fracture occurred, not only was painted Renoir's life and world literally ripped apart, but his wife and his oldest daughter, painted Clair, both vanished in the chaos. And when the survivors of the fracture finally were able to regroup at Lumiere, they were horrified to see a massive woman slowly appear on the horizon. I mean, damn, can you imagine? And in that aftermath, it was decided that there had to be some sort of exploratory effort of all that had happened. A search and rescue mission for Aileen, Clair, and all the others that had been displaced. A mission to see what the hell that big woman was, and it was who else but the painted Renoir that was chosen to act as the leader of what came to be known as Expedition Zero. This group included other close friends of the painted Dessendre as well as the painted Verso, and what they found on the continent was nothing short of pure carnage, unimaginable destruction, almost no trace of survivors. And as they approached the monolith, a familiar face appeared before them. It was Clair, but this was not the daughter that the painted Renoir knew and loved. It was the real Clair, bearing some insane, mind-melting news for these painted people, as she shared with them every single detail of their world. She explained that they exist within a canvas, a painting, that they were created of chroma, that the real Verso made this place but is now dead. The nature of Aileen, how she is that big female form with the monolith, the real Renoir, the stalemate, all of it. Now, remember, Clair was very much on her father's side in that bigger battle. She wanted to get her mom out of the canvas ASAP, so maybe she did this to try to recruit this group to her cause. I'm really not sure. But when Expedition Zero understandably expressed overwhelming disbelief upon hearing this stuff, Clair attacked them, cutting down and murdering the expedition without hesitation. But remember, this version of Renoir and Verso were created to be immortal, so they were able to escape and make a break for it back to Lumiere. But Jesus, man, what a horror show that must have been. How do you even process that kind of absurd information? And the violence, all your homies getting killed in front of you like that, and all the existential questions that come with it, your immortality being discovered in that moment, and to make matters even worse, when these two returned with this story, claiming that the big scary lady was actually an ally, that the rest of the expedition was dead, people were suspicious and outwardly hostile toward them. And so, Painted Renoir let out a long sigh, took his remaining children, and left, heading back to the continent and understanding very clearly what must be done. He must dedicate himself night and day to protecting his wife and in turn protecting the entire world of the canvas. He must fight against anyone and anything that threatens the paintress, the real Clair, the real Renoir, the people of Lumiere, anyone, if it means seeing his family whole again someday. So this fascinating reflection of our villain, he bears a heavy burden. He's not just some bloodthirsty psychopath, he's been hardened by his own unique tragedies and hardships. He has seen the true nature of this world and believes that what he is doing is the right thing. He's protective and angry, decisive and deadly. Now mind you, after the fracture, the gommage, that whole thing with the number counting down every year, was not immediately understood by those in Lumiere. I mean, when the number was super high and only old people were dying, seemed like business as usual. But as the decades went by, the correlation became soberingly clear. And as the expeditions began to set their target on the paintress, the Painted Renoir waited on the continent, setting his sights on the expeditions. The first act of Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, is something truly, truly special. After surviving Renoir's beach attack, Gustave wakes up in an unknown place, overcoming the shock and despair of the moment as he very slowly reunites with several other Expedition 33 members that made it out alive. Lune, a close friend, Maëlle, Gustave's foster sister, and finally, Ciel, another good pal. And though this video is not about all these other characters, man, I gotta tell you, they're all great. Gustave especially is so good. He's believably scared yet capable and brave for his friends. Lune is like super knowledge-driven and laser-focused on the mission. Maëlle, unshakably strong for someone only 16 years of age. And Ciel, positive and fun even in the darkest of circumstances. Each one of these characters could fill an hour-long Pedia video all by themselves, and the first dozen or so hours of the gameplay endears you to every single one of them on a deep level, but especially Gustave and Maëlle. But as this ragtag group of survivors is trying to find other members of Expedition 33, exploring their surroundings, Maëlle is constantly plagued by very strange nightmares. In them we see Verso, though we don't know who he is yet, we see the painted Alicia, and of course we see the man from the beach, Painted Renoir.
I told you to stay home. It's not good for you to see this. Yes, I understand. It's her fault, and she doesn't even know it. But you can't be here.
What are you talking about? What's my fault? What is this?
You should never have come. You're only going to make things worse for everyone. Now take your friends and go home. Let them spend their final year in peace. This is your only warning.
This game overall does an incredible job at always teasing these bigger, stranger things that are totally out of your realm of understanding with scenes just like this, but always refusing to explain any of the details. The only thing within Act 1 that is crystal clear is that this man does not want the expedition doing any of the things that they're doing. But I think you and I both know that any great video game villain needs at least one big, awful, definitive act. An unforgettably evil thing that makes the player hate them and count down the seconds until the big boss fight. And for Painted Renoir, that moment comes at the very end of Act 1. After you've already explored so many different regions of this continent. After you've recruited the beloved Esquier to your team, and after you have gained some real confidence as an expedition that if you lean on each other, anything is possible. When leaving the area called the Stonewall Cliffs, Maëlle and Gustave take a moment to engage in an important little ritual of theirs, ceremoniously tossing rocks toward the paintress on the horizon. A moment to reflect on how far they have come together, and how their goal is growing closer and closer with every day that passes. Little do they know that danger is breathing down their necks.
Ooh, what about that one?
Does it really matter?
Well, you know, like I always say, it's not about the rock. It's more about...
Gustav.
Run.
Run. Please run.
Why are you doing this?
There's even that kind of 1 HP battle where you can't do any damage or anything to show you that this guy is stupidly strong and you don't stand a chance.
For those who come after. Right?
You promise!
Absolutely gut-wrenching. Honestly, I almost put the game down my first playthrough at Gustav's death because I was just so shocked. But this scene gets even more interesting when he speaks to Mael.
You won't yet understand. But this is a kindness, not a cruelty.
You let her come. You know she's too weak for this. How could you let her take such a risk?
You only care when things are right in front of you. My sweet child, you are supposed to stay home. I told you not to worry. But since you're here now, just stay put.
What are you saying? You must go home, now. This does not involve you.
When this is over, we'll go home together.
No!
This won't make sense to you now. But we both want what's best for our families. I'm sorry you're caught in the middle, but I did try to warn you.
Thankfully, the last second, this suave stranger, who you and I know is Painted Verso, appears out of the blue to save the day.
It's been a while. Stay out of this. You chose to walk away. You don't get to come back now and interfere.
You've lived more than a lifetime. It's time to let her go.
A lifetime. A lifetime with my family torn apart. No. I want my family back.
It's not your family. But she is.
I mean, this is one of those scenes where the player at home is meant to feel overwhelmed with both information and trauma. Because with Gustav gone, I mean, the game you thought you were playing was kind of thrown out the window entirely. The party is in this shell-shocked state, forced to regroup without its leader. It's unimaginable. So this villain, a mirror of a grief-stricken father, created by the hand of a grief-stricken mother who is himself now grieving the loss of his own painted life and family, is able to inflict the brand of pain that he's most familiar with, grief. He injects the party and the player at home with the pain that he has been feeling since the fracture, the pain from the real world that led to his very creation. I mean, it's no secret that this game at its heart is all about grief, and to me, Painted Renoir is the harbinger of this emotion. The pain, the shock, all of that personified. What a bastard. But after this tragedy, I mean, you want to keep playing the game, right? So all you can do is continue on. It's what Gustav would have wanted for those who come after. And that handsome devil who saved Mael's life soon appears in your camp, offering his sympathies and his cooperation.
If you want to reach the monolith, the best path is through the quarry up north.
Who are you? And where did you get that expedition uniform?
Strange way to say thank you. I'm sorry I couldn't save your friend.
Now look, I know this is a Renoir video, it's not about Verso, but I just gotta say it, of all the amazing characters in Clair Obscur, he is by far the best one, I think, and it's not particularly close. He deserves his own long-ass video, so I guess let me know down below, is that something you would like to see someday? But what's important regarding him for this Villainpedia entry is that at this point in the story, the party doesn't really get him, doesn't really know who he actually is. All Verso says is that he was a part of Expedition Zero years ago and that some of the survivors of it stopped aging. He claims that Renoir, just like him, is immortal and enjoys living forever, thus he's trying to protect the Paintress for selfish reasons. I mean, you can definitely tell he's hiding things, as Verso from beginning to the end plays his cards extremely close to his chest, but once he joins, he interestingly takes over for Gustav as the de facto leader of Expedition 33. Act 2 of the game then begins. The expedition recruits Verso's very best friend and my favorite party member in the whole game, Monoko, along with the adorable little Noko.
Out of the question. I will never join you again.
There will be a lot of fighting, though.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's true.
There will be a lot of fighting.
Exactly.
Count me in then.
Good.
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 Yes, good.
Noko's coming too.
Oh, you are?
They explore new and increasingly dangerous places. The world only seems to get larger and weirder with every turn they take, and every day, the party inches closer and closer to the Paintress. And I imagine at this time, the Painted Renoir watching from afar in absolute disgust and disappointment, heartbroken to see his own son aiding the enemy, realizing that he really does want to kill the Paintress, and all of the terrifying ramifications for the canvas should that come to pass. But the party's path eventually takes them to a very interesting location lore-wise, Old Lumiere, the place where the city once stood. Verso claims that there is something here called the Paintress's Heart, and it could be key to weakening the enemy and taking her down. But it's actually toward the very end of this area, after the party's been accidentally kind of split up Scooby-Doo style, that Mael alone comes into a clearing with a garden and a massive manor that seems far too intact to belong amongst the surrounding ruins. And what she sees here, well, it's disorienting and strange to say the very least.
I knew you'd open the door for her.
Really, Verso? This was your plan?
This broken apart, strange looking, faceless woman, the painted Renoir, Verso catching up and being all moody. You don't fully understand this at the time, of course, but you are witnessing a dysfunctional as hell, painted family reunion.
How many times must you hurt our family?
No, you don't get to lecture me on family.
Why do you refuse to see I am doing this for us? Yet you insist on rushing toward death. You're trying to stop the wrong cycle.
You're doing this for yourself.
Of course. It's easier for you to think that, isn't it? Easier to betray us if I'm the villain.
So move. I'm gonna fucking kill him.
You haven't told her the truth. Have you, son?
Sorry we're late. We were busy doing a bit of reading. Were you planning on sharing that this man, the man who murdered our team, is your father?
Family is not my favorite topic. Right, can we talk about this later? I'd really like for you all to survive this.
After the big Skywalker reveal, at last, Expedition 33 gets a chance to actually trade blows with Gustav's murderer, and damn, it is a tough fight. I mean, you had a feeling that he was strong, but when it comes to the actual game mechanics here, meaning parrying, well, let's just say he beat my ass a few times, okay? 6 times the charm, I guess, but you would be crazy to think that this was his full power and you're gonna kill him right here.
Everyone all right? Malaka?
And of all the targets, he hits the innocent little Noko, killing him. But that isn't it.
Why can't you accept who you are?
So this is more stuff where this video could very easily go way off the rails and get into all these other characters and their own complex stories. So if it's not obvious to you already, this is the painted Alicia. And Mael is in truth the real Alicia. So the short version goes like this. 16 years ago in Canvas time, Alicia decided to head inside to help her parents resolve this argument. But in the process, she was overwhelmed by her mother's paintress powers and, quote, painted over, meaning she was then reborn as a person here, a baby, as Mael, unaware of her true original identity and that is why she has all these strange dreams. That is why the Painted Dessendre are all kind of obsessed with her. And it's why, as the game builds into Act 3, she becomes really the central protagonist, playing the integral role in confronting both the painted and real versions of her father, Renoir. But after this battle and kind of crazy lore dump, Painted Renoir vanishes yet again along with the entire manor as the party grips with the new reality that Verso is the son of Expedition 33's killer. Now, it's worth reminding you yet again that around this point in the game, everyone still strongly believes that the Paintress is the main villain that needs to be dealt with. Renoir, though he's badass and intimidating and all that stuff, is more of an irritating and persistent mini-boss than anything else. And soon, the party comes to learn that he isn't the only thing guarding the monolith. If you try to just swim up to it now that you're close enough, this strange magical chroma barrier prevents intruders from even entering the beach. However, with Verso's immortal experience as well as Lune's academic knowledge of all the expeditions of the past, the group comes up with a very interesting plan to utilize a friend of theirs that has been in camp since the beginning, and this is huge. A mysterious fella called the Curator who helps the party out mechanically by upgrading all of your weapons and items. By using the powers of this strange being, they plan to forge a weapon capable of piercing the monolith's barrier. But the only way the Curator can forge such a thing is to take down two enemies called the Axons, humongous massive creatures made of enormous amounts of chroma, and bring all that power back to camp. Okay, great. So the expedition goes off and does it, and probably 10 hours later, after some of the most jaw-droppingly beautiful boss fights and environments I think I have ever seen in my life, Maëlle is now armed with a special piercing sword that will allow the crew to go where so few expeditions have ever gone. But that night, when spirits are super high, Verso takes a second for himself and is visited in camp by his sister. She hands him a letter before guess who shows up, not to fight, but just to talk.
You embrace her, yet you're condemning her to die.
You brought him here?
I'm not here to fight. But my son, do you know what it means to disappear into nothingness? Have you thought through the consequences? Not just for you, or even me, but for them. Their memories, their dreams, their love for each other. Who really is the one painting death, and who paints life instead? We exist and we will exist for as long as she wants. You want to spoil what we've been given. Sometimes we paint the bars of our own prison. Your despair blinds you. You think you're ready to pay the price. But are you willing to let them pay the price for you?
May everything be decided before their very eyes,
Between the bars of their prison.
in the shadow of the monolith.
In the shadow of the monolith.
This is the first time that, to me, Painted Renoir seems less like a ruthless villain and much more like a concerned father. But it is worth asking the question, why is Verso doing this? I mean, he's so secretive it's hard to say unlike your initial playthrough, but the short answer is pretty simple. Verso has become utterly disillusioned with his own immortality and the very existence of this canvas. He's experiencing what you might call existential dread, painfully aware that he is just this painted ghost of a man long gone. And though he's tried to reason with his father about what they're doing and why they're doing it, Renoir has never budged. The matching black scars these two men bear, that was the result of a fight. And though they are immortal and able to heal themselves, they both choose to leave those scars as a reminder of what they are each fighting for. That's so fucking dramatic. But Verso overall seems pretty sure of his stance. He seems to know exactly what he wants, even if he doesn't want to open up to his new friends that much. And once the party heads back to the monolith with the barrier breaker, it's finally time for some big moving and shaking. But surprisingly, once you're approaching, the Painted Renoir is nowhere to be found. You would expect the captain of Paintress Security Corporation to be right here waiting for you, but there isn't a soul, not even a Nevron, a creature, nothing. Suddenly, it really feels like you're reaching the climax of the game. The scale of this area, the paintress sitting back there, oh my god, it's honestly chilling. And as 33 approaches, they're also free to just walk right up and engage in combat. Still no Renoir. However, after a few rounds of nothing much happening here, they realize that something is up. This big woman, the one they've been looking at their entire lives, is nothing more than a front. And the real paintress, the real Aileen, is actually that fractured female form that Mael saw back at the manor. So they chase after her, entering the monolith, fighting through a strange broken amalgam of all the zones already traversed, climbing up higher and higher and higher, and you just know that, yeah, painted Renoir is around here somewhere. You can almost smell him. And when the expedition enters this incredible room with a black hole swirling overhead, your wait is over.
You.
We're taking her down.
She's not the only one who grieves. The pain of losing you, she made me inherited. Punishment, perhaps, for not being there when it mattered. I refuse to lose my son.
That son was a stranger.
But you're not. You're not.
You lost me years ago, and I lost you.
So you leave us no choice. Tell me, how are you different from her in doing this?
I'm tired.
So trust me. We are your family.
Family is complicated.
If saving you means losing you, then so be it.
We only need to incapacitate him.
We'll find a way to kill him.
Wow, what a hard-ass line that is. If saving you means losing you, then so be it. A perfect microcosm of this character and his ruthless fatherly love. Fantastic. And this fight, well, it's even harder than the last one, unsurprisingly. It's incredibly cinematic, amazing music, and a really hectic pace. Keeps you on your toes the whole time with some extremely tough attacks to avoid, and it's definitely the longest fight of the game up to this point. Took me maybe 10, 12 minutes to beat, just gotta hit a couple fat parries like that. So satisfying. And I love how as he gets lower and lower, he begins to literally crack apart, turning gray, glowing from within, showing his true nature, a man of chroma, construction.
Remember. It's not her. It's your sister, your mother, me. We are your family. He would condemn us all to die. For what? Who do you really save with your sacrifice?
Your sister and your mother?
You're too drunk on your own illusions to understand.
Then let us celebrate the second destruction of the Dessendre family!
And when it seems like there's nothing you can do to stop him, even after whooping his ass so thoroughly, an unexpected character steps forward.
At long last, we meet. This is all you have left of your son. Destroying it won't bring your wife back. It will only destroy the last tie you have to each other.
The curator, the red petals, Maëlle, painted Renoir was gommaged, just like the citizens of Lumiere, finally put to rest with those cryptic last words. I remember so clearly on my first playthrough, standing at my desk in this moment with my head in my hands as I realized the curator was the real Renoir. So let's rewind substantially here again, as the last we heard of the real Renoir in the backstory, like 20 minutes ago, was that he was imprisoned in like the netherworld of the canvas by Aileen, able to only use a fraction of his power to slowly and surely erase the canvas. But very early on in this game, when you are still playing as Gustave, trying to find survivors of the assault on the beach, you find Maëlle in a very strange place. Not in a battlefield or hiding out in the woods somewhere, but alone in an alternate version of the Dessendre manor, being tenderly taken care of by the slightly off-putting and faceless curator. The guy doesn't talk, just kind of does these airy growl sounds, floats around, and helps you learn the ropes, then just parks it in your camp permanently to act as a kind of blacksmith improving your stuff. Honestly, he kind of reminds me of Withers in Baldur's Gate 3, if you've played that. How any player looking at this dude would think, okay, something's gotta be up with him, right? He's way too over-designed and cool to be like your butler. And when you see that version of the paintress at the old Lumiere Manor and then the monolith, you're like, huh. Not to mention, all along your journey, whenever Maëlle makes physical contact with the curator, she experiences weird stuff. One time, even clearly seeing a flash of her real father for like half a second. So this is the deal, ladies and gentlemen. From underneath the monolith, the real Renoir was able to project only a tiny fragment of his immense power out into the world of the canvas with one goal: to guide his daughter, who he was aware was stuck here as Maëlle, all the way to the monolith with her expedition to assist him in removing Aileen. So every time you go to him in camp to upgrade your stuff, that's the real Renoir giving you a better shot at ending the stalemate with his wife. It's him playing the game that the canvas has forced into his hand and inching closer and closer to winning this argument. But I love how a necessary and expected RPG mechanic like upgrading your stuff has this hidden narrative meaning. Very, very, very cool to me. I love it. And so here in this moment, when the painted Renoir sees the curator step forward, he knows immediately who he is. Probably a pretty huge deal for both of these characters, but man, I wish we knew more about their thoughts on each other. Gotta be kinda awkward, don't you think? Sort of sharing a wife with yourself? And when Painted Renoir says those final words, to me that is him saying, listen, I get it. I feel exactly what you do, and I would do the same thing in your shoes. These ones are mine, those ones are yours, but I love them too. It's kind of gibberish in the moment, but with the full context, I honestly find it pretty moving. But alright, back at the monolith, the path is finally clear. Gustave and Noko are avenged. Only the Paintress awaits above, and finally, the people of Lumiere will surely be free of the dreaded Gommage. But when 33 gets up there, well, it's not quite what they were expecting. The Paintress isn't some evil overlord, she's weak, delirious, and confused, thinking for a second that she is seeing the real Verso, experiencing something between the canvas and real life. She then sees Maëlle and is even more sure her family is before her, but that fantasy quickly unravels.
Come along. Let's go home.
Yes. You need to go home.
This is another trick. She's not Alicia. You are not my Verso.
No. Verso's dead.
No. You are his creations, not mine.
And so they are left with no other option. This was the expected outcome: to fight.
You will not take this canvas from me.
And I sound like a damn broken record at this point, but this is also an amazing encounter. Clair Obscur just nails these big narrative boss fights with the scale and the musical score to elevate them far beyond your expectations. Phase 1 is pretty straightforward, but then she pulls out her brush and the big lady as the floor gets all shiny and reflective like paint. It's so cool. And then the fight kind of dwindles down into a very bleak final phase. The music shifts and the Paintress simply sits down, exhausted, and instead of fighting, she actually attempts to help you, healing the party and just waiting for her pain to end. At long last, the Paintress is gone. Though it isn't exactly the glorious victory the party thought it would be, but still in a delirious celebratory glow, the party plants that 33 flag, takes a moment to breathe it all in, and then heads back to Lumiere. And when they arrive, I mean, it kind of feels like everything is as it should be. The number is gone, the Paintress is gone, and after nearly a century, an expedition actually returned home, successful. But as everyone dances around, reveling in this victory, remembering Gustave and the others, something begins to feel off yet again. Verso seems to know that something is coming, as he holds in his hands the letter, the one that his painted sister brought him the night before the monolith, and it reveals so much of the lore that we have discussed in this video up to this point, but with one incredible revelation that we have yet to kind of touch on, though you probably already know.
My family. A facsimile of yours. And this world, a mirror, painted by your mother, the Paintress, to stave off her grief. Seeing your expedition through would plunge us all into the abyss. For in ridding the world of the Paintress, you'd lose the sole force standing against the one who would erase us. The one who invokes the flowers of the Gommage. An act of love. For he does love her. Your father. On her monolith, she paints a warning for us all, of the few she can save as her power wanes. We all wish for our families to thrive. Your family, however, believes only one can survive. But perhaps you'll find another way. You who have lived amongst us, perhaps you differ from your father and your sister, as I differ from mine. Your mother paints life, whilst your father, death.
So the gommage from the very beginning of the game had been the doing of the real Renoir. His power constricted in his prison, able to only erase the life that he can, the oldest and the weakest chroma. And the paintress, vilified and hated, was their protector. By succeeding on the monolith, you have doomed the entire canvas. As a massive wave of energy rushes over the city, every last person in Lumiere, including children and all the members of Expedition 33, are killed. Now, there are many jaw-dropping moments in this game, but this one I think takes the cake for me. I am just amazed, even knowing all this now, looking back, how well layered the story is to get to this specific point. How well hidden but sort of obvious all the truths were, and how Renoir, split in two, dictates the shape of this narrative at every single turn. It's just amazing. And from here, it feels like, where the hell is the story even supposed to go now? You know, it's over. If the whole thing was a battle between Aileen and Renoir for control over the canvas, you just ended it. And usually in Villainpedia videos around this point, we get to ask and answer my favorite question: why does this specific antagonist fail? But I think you can see that Renoir completely succeeds in his main goal. But we need to ask ourselves, from the villain's perspective, what kind of victory really is it? Every detail of this world represents the talent and the raw emotion of his wife, whom he loves. It's also the shadow of his dead son and his childlike imagination. He doesn't enjoy succeeding, not one bit. But what Renoir never foresaw, and the key to the final act of this game, is how Verso's canvas has grown to be something else now too. A place of acceptance and a place of love for his youngest daughter. And a world that she is absolutely still willing to fight for. So after everyone is gommaged, we get this very strange little mini chapter starring Maëlle, or I guess we should say Alicia, back in time before she ever entered the canvas initially, at home in the real Paris. And this is where we get to see some interesting things. We meet the real Clair, and we see Renoir and Aileen in that sort of frozen chroma stasis, projecting themselves into the canvas. I'm guessing this is like right around when the fracture is taking place in there, as Clair says that the parents are now in a stalemate. But damn, it's so weird seeing their muscles stuck like that, like a mannequin with the paint leaking from their eyes. I don't like it, man, it's disturbing. But this is that whole moment we talked about earlier where Alicia entered with good intentions but was painted over and reborn. But what I think is really cool and almost sci-fi-esque is after being gommaged as Maëlle, the memories of her two separate lives are combined into one single identity. One which allows Maëlle to rematerialize in the canvas with the self-determination and knowledge of her true self, as well as her true power. Because she, just like her mother and her sister Clair, is a paintress. A weak one, but one with the ability to paint death and life, just like her folks, which we saw earlier. And after she is reunited with the very moody painted Verso in the desolate Lumiere, things somehow get even more interesting. Because remember, this is the very first time in the entirety of Clair Obscur that the real Renoir is free from the monolith, and he awaits nearby to speak with his beloved daughter. So let's just see what this is like.
Papa.
Alicia. You're safe. I thought I told you to stay home.
Technically, my body's at home.
Some of Eileen's finest work. I regret that it caused you so much pain. What Eileen did was unfair to you most of all. Please, accept the Dessendre family's apologies. I know it seems absurd to offer oblivion as recompense, but perhaps that's the outcome we both desire.
What?
I'm proud of you. Getting your mother out of the canvas was not easy. Once we erase the canvas, we won't have to worry anymore.
But she's home now. Why?
You know your mother. Verso painted this canvas. It contains a piece of his soul. She'll never willingly part with it.
No.
For the sake of the living, we must part with the dead.
No, Papa. See, I hid the canvas.
She'll always find it. This is our only opportunity, while she's too sick from her prolonged descent into the canvas to return.
No. Papa. Papa, please. This is Verso's only canvas. You can't destroy the last piece of him that we have. This is my home now. You can't just decide...
Your home? After all that with your mother, you want to stay?
You know how little remains of my life outside.
Alicia, you'll die. You've already been here longer than you should.
But...
No. Look at me, I said no. I am not letting my daughter risk her life. Alicia.
I'm not, Mama. I'm not going to lose myself if I stay.
I know full well you will, and I am not doing this again!
No!
Damn. It is crazy to hear the video game villain that just like mass murdered an entire race say his piece, and I'm nodding my head like, yeah, I completely agree. And I know there's already going to be a lot of comments on this video saying Renoir isn't the villain Eileen is, and well, yeah, I mean, I kind of agree, but again, it's all a matter of perspective.
It's time to go home.
Verso, come on. Come on.
I just know he let out a huge, exasperated sigh after this scene. But I really love the subtle differences in character here. Real Renoir is much softer and more paternal than the painted one. He's pretty strict and, rigid in what he thinks is right, like any dad is, but his demeanor, the look in his eyes, and even his light-colored clothing reflect a far more realistic portrait of fatherhood and love. And watching that little interaction with Verso is also fascinating stuff. He doesn't for a second consider him to be his real son, and is openly apologetic about his being a victim of circumstance. It's almost like he's talking to a complete stranger, which is pretty cold, but also very deeply rooted in what he believes is real and not. But that little moment, where she's able to save Painted Verso from being erased, that is kind of like the setup to the narrative through line of the final act. She escapes back to the continent and learns how to revive her close friends through her painter's powers. She begins to gather all of the chroma from all of the expeditioner bodies that riddle the landscape, and Renoir, back in Lumiere, is summoning insanely powerful dark creations to destroy the canvas once and for all. It's funny because saying it like that, it sounds and feels extremely urgent, like the final battle is upon you, but Act 3 is actually where the game opens up to tons of side content. Like 20 to 30 hours or more. So, Papa's waiting for you in Lumiere whenever you're ready, but you can literally just leave it there as long as you want. And I will say, if you're into the lore of this world, it is 1,000,000,000% worth doing as much of the optional stuff as possible. You learn all about the accents, which Renoir actually created himself to represent each one of his beloved family members. There's loads of symbolism in there to uncover. You get to visit his former prison underneath the monolith, uncover every nook and cranny of the Dessendre Manor, find some long-forgotten missing characters, and the expedition even collects a few very interesting diary entries of Renoir's. But the coolest thing to be found for me personally are the interactions with this ethereal neutral NPC called the Fading Man. a specter of sorts, representing Renoir and his memories, a small fragment of his soul who gives low-context, sometimes nonsensical commentary on the past and on his family. It's a really cool kind of smattering of things lore-wise that help you slowly compile a more complete portrait of not just Renoir, but all of the greater story. There's also a great little optional relationship-building conversation between Verso and Maëlle in Act 3 that results in them like graffiti writing on the monolith "Get out, Papa" in French, which you know he can see from Lumiere, and he's probably rolling his eyes and being like, damn, these kids. I think it's very funny. But once you have grinded your heart out, completed all that you wanted to complete, and got all your achievos and weapons and your ass kicked by Simon enough times, it is finally time to end this. The final assault on the crumbling Lumiere is one of the coolest video game endings I've experienced since the damn Warthog run, because Maëlle found a way to revive the chroma ghosts of all the expeditioners that had perished over the years and is now using them as like a fighting force, storming the harbor to take on all of Renoir's dark beasts. But honestly, as the expedition fights further and further in, the tone shifts from triumphant and excited to a bit more melancholy. You visit the place where Gustave's journey began, the rooftop garden. You see the once beautiful city that you strolled through on that sunny day so long ago, broken to pieces, and you even witness what I interpret to be a display of Renoir's own sorrow, an image of his young son giving a piano concert to a vacant hall. What should be an exciting blaze to the final encounter is instead a reflective one, and I wouldn't have it any other way. When at last 33 comes to a massive garden with the funky Eiffel Tower at its very end, and at its base, standing alone, lost in thought, is Renoir.
Papa?
Alicia.
Please, I just want you to understand what this canvas means to me.
I do understand. I know how powerful and intoxicating it is. How deeply attached we can become to the worlds we pour our hearts and souls into. I was enthralled, and it nearly killed me.
It doesn't mean you have to erase Verso's canvas.
Child, do you think I want to? After all the sorrows we've endured, do you really think that I want to destroy this last piece of his soul?
Then don't.
Life keeps forcing cruel choices. We do what we must.
Grief often blinds us, and we make choices we can never take back.
You grieve for two.
I grieve for many.
The choices of parents leave indelible marks upon their children. But ultimately, the voices in their head have to be their own. You cannot set the boundaries of their life for them.
After the fire, you wanted me to find new joy in life. And I tried. But I couldn't. Verso died because of me. How do I get from that to joy?
Child, it will get better, I promise you. But this is not the way. Your friends speak truth. And it changes nothing. You can hate me. But that's a choice I must make. As your father, I must look out for you. Especially when you can't look out for yourself.
You treat me as if I'm still 5!
I treat you as if the shadow from the worst day of our lives is going to suffocate you and take you from us too! I said, enough.
What incredible writing, man. I feel like I have felt that exact energy from my own dad so many times as a kid. You know, me trying to tell him, look, you don't get it, man, you don't understand me. And he's like, oh, I get it. I just understand things that you don't understand yet. But, you know, children are never in the right headspace to actually listen to their parents. And so, the fight begins. Now, I would love to tell you all about the intricate mechanics of this final battle, but listen, I came in here so overleveled I chunked Renoir's health bar in like half a turn. Literally the easiest fight of the entire game for me. Whoopsie. So here's some footage of someone else doing it. It's very hard, or so I hear. But after that first phase, of all people, Aileen makes her presence felt in this fight yet again. She's really not letting the argument go, damn. Re-entering the canvas to even the scales and give Maëlle a better chance to win. Man, this family's messed up. But again, it is just stupidly cinematic, and damn is Renoir's sword paintbrush the coolest thing ever. But unfortunately, I burned through the final phase also in like under 10 seconds. But when Renoir is done, using all of his thematic moves with the big Dessendre family portrait and all these other badass things, and he is down to his last sliver of health, Maëlle executes one hell of a final blow.
Your mother was the one who saved me when I lost myself in a canvas. She taught me how to safely use our gift. How to soar without flying too close to the sun. We painted hundreds of canvas worlds, pushing the very boundaries of creation. And she never let me forget that every day we spent here has a price. Yet, here we are now.
So trust her. If she's doing this, then...
I trust what she taught me. This is not a game. You think you know what's at stake, but you don't.
I know precisely what's at stake. You want control. You want to feel like you're doing something. You couldn't save Verso, so you want to save us. Except you're not. Destroying the canvas won't help us move on. It'll just deny us the one place that helped us feel again.
67 years. 67 years I spent trapped within the monolith. But I persisted. Do you know why? Do you know why I cannot leave her or you behind? This is what I see every day. I cannot spend another day with living corpses. Since the fire, our family has crumbled. Aline, in the canvas. Claire, fighting her solitary war. You, a living ghost. Verso's death broke us. Wanted to be fixed. I need it to be fixed. I cannot lose you too.
Don't you see? That's how I feel about them. I can't lose them either. I've lost too much.
Suddenly, in this final scene, all of the magic, all of the fantasy of this game kind of fades away beautifully, and you see this clearly for what it really is. A child begging her father to let her keep playing here, to let her cling to the past because right now it's all that she has.
I don't want to lose you either. I'm not leaving you forever. Just a little longer.
I want to trust you, but...
You can.
Keep the light on for you. I hope you find peace. Hold on to each other.
Just incredible. One of my favorite endings for an antagonist in any RPG. Renoir gets to completely air out his impossible emotional position here. His pain, his strength, and his shortcomings are all on full display. And though he feels so strongly that he knows best and he definitely doesn't trust her word, he gives in to the love that he has for his daughter, at least in this moment. And man, Andy Serkis is just amazing. This character would not be half of what he is without this specific performance. But of course, this is not the end. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 finds its ultimate resolution not in the defeat of its villain, but in the choice of its heroes. Overall, Maëlle represents a handful of very relatable, childlike, and innocent wants as a character. She wants to be accepted, she wants to be loved, she wants to be happy, and she wants to remain here within the canvas with her friends. But for our other main character, Verso, as we touched on, things are quite a bit darker. After more than a lifetime of immortality, violence, and sorrow, he has come to the conclusion that what he really wants is peace. He can no longer stand to be the center of all the suffering of the real and the painted version of this family, and in other words, he has privately the entire game wished to just pull the plug. But here, at the end of it all, he sees his opportunity. He rushes into the heart of this world where, heartbreakingly, we see the last fragment of the real Verso's kid soul tirelessly maintaining the fabric of the canvas. And it is here that the game asks you the simple question, which of these two characters do you align with more? In some ways, it's the philosophy of the real and the painted Renoir, here, butting heads. And when that prompt appears, man, your heart just sinks. How the hell are you supposed to choose? Who has the greater right to decide the fate of this world? What about all that you have seen and done, your friends, the Gestrels, Lumiere, all of it? In a stroke of video game genius, Clair Obscur gently pushes Renoir aside and, as if it's emulating a father's teaching tone, says, "Alright, fine, you kids want to fight about it. You decide what's best." It's just great, and believe me, no matter which side you pick, you're gonna have your heart broken. But in my opinion, the only mature, healthy, and right thing to do is side with Verso. Which is crazy to say because it's what the main villain was fighting tooth and nail for the entire game. But that, my friends, is the masterclass that is Renoir. He somehow removes all that super strong bias you start out with Gustave when you know so little about this world. He highlights how unfair and strange this whole thing is for Painted Verso specifically. And ultimately, it seems that the majority of players have come to agree. And if you take this path, the difficult path, I'm gonna be honest, it's tough to stomach, like ripping off a band-aid. But even while watching the expedition evaporate before your eyes, it still feels right. It offers the real Dessendre the best chance they have at a hopeful future, and more importantly, it gives the canvas, that last shred of the real Verso, what it deserves: peace at last. And in the final ending scene, we are shown something truly beautiful. The family coming together at the grave of their son. Renoir and Aileen embracing the father's goal achieved. Renoir has quickly become one of my favorite video game antagonists ever, not because he's deeply evil or has some crazy scheme to take over the world, but because every single thing he does out of fierce loyalty and love. He's far from perfect, he's rough and human and actively hurting, but the way that he and his painted reflection function as villains, it peels back the strange, crazy layers of this game world to reveal its core truth. That the greatest way to heal is to move forward, to live in the here and now, the real world, to lean on those around you, those that love you, and be willing to leave the past in the past.